Welcome to the Saving with Steve show, where we talk about the ins and outs of money. Everything under the sun relates to you having a happier, healthier relationship with money. My name is Steve Sexton. I want to thank you for joining us. Thank you for sharing this with your friends and family. You know what? We have the holiday season. We're moving into the new year. The primary key here is don't be a victim of fraud. Cyber criminals continue to adapt their techniques to find new ways through defenses. AI-assisted fraud is growing increasingly sophisticated and frequent. According to a global report, deep fake attempts occur every 5 minutes in 2024. Digital document forgeries increased 240% year over year, which is gigantic. During the holiday season, retail fraud's up 10%, financial service, professional service fraud's up 28%. The service sector and e-commerce saw a notable spike in fraudulent intents. You know what? We have Simon Horswell. He's a senior financial specialist at Entrust to walk us through the 12 frauds, how to protect yourself and your business. This is the one you don't want to miss. Simon, welcome to the show. Appreciate you being here again.
Thanks for having me back, Steve. It's good to be here.
Yes, 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 yes. So for those of you who don't know Simon, Simon is an AI deepfake expert. Okay, he has worked in integration officer in the UK for almost 10 years. He became an expert document examiner, senior fraud specialist at Entrust. You know, like I said, he's going to walk us through the frauds, what to look for, protect ourselves and our businesses. Because this fraud, you know what, I run across people probably a couple times a month, and I hear the stories. And just recently here in the United States, people are starting to get texts that are fake texts that talk about, we caught you on a traffic camera. If you select this link and pay right now, you won't receive a ticket and won't have to go to court. And
hmm
you know what? It's just like, oh my God, here we go. And I thought to myself, and it was when I was thinking of you, and it's like, wow, that's pretty darn ingenious.
Yeah. And another one is the what is it? Is it INS? Is it in the States? So the
Hmm.
immigration, suddenly they'll contact someone, and again, it's potluck, but they'll contact you with a similar kind of text message saying, "Hey, your status is overdue. We're going to fine you, but if you pay it now, we won't deport you."
Oh
Which
yeah.
again, same idea, slightly different nuance, but it's the same idea, and you'll find there's a common thread through all of these. But yeah, it's this idea of setting up a scenario, intimidating someone, making them push for very time sensitive action on their part that normally involves giving over money. There's the surprise. These are key little flags that you can pick up on that will set the warning flags in motion, as it were.
So, folks, when you're listening here, listen for that common theme that the criminals always do, because if you go to that, it'll make a big difference. So, for example, in the United States, people receive phone calls from people posing as the IRS. In fact, they will show the caller ID from the Internal Revenue Service.
hmm
And you know what? The biggest thing that people don't realize about the Internal Revenue Service is they don't call you.
Nope.
They don't ask you for money. They send you letters and they
Yep.
keep threatening you and stuff like that. Why? Because they don't have enough manpower to start calling people. Uh,
Correct.
and you know what? It's just really, really very interesting. So let's start talking about this. You know, the number one you had on your list was phishing. A lot
Yeah.
of people don't quite understand exactly what phishing is, and I get the idea of somebody just throwing out something and having somebody log on to it like somebody's fishing in the river, but how does it actually work?
So the phishing email it's essentially any form of fake email, text message, SMS, maybe even something through social media platform messaging. And essentially what they're doing is they're posing as a trusted entity. So it could be your bank, it could be a tech company, it could be a government agency like law enforcement or like you mentioned, the IRS. And their aim is to try and get some sensitive information from you. It might be passwords or login details for the company you work at or your work address. It could be credit card details, any payment details. It could even be your social security number. So a lot of the time it's posing as somebody else in an unsolicited email. And the real problem that we have with this is it's becoming more and more realistic. So I know generative AI has become very much a buzzword and it's been sort of demonified all over the place. But this is really one of those scenarios where if you're the fraudster, generative AI has really made your job a lot easier because now with the chat engines that we've got, like Chat GPT, for example, there's obviously a couple out there, but these models will actually cater and create a far more realistically worded sentence and message and email that is more convincing for that fact. And then when you bring in the idea that fraudsters for a while now have been spoofing through various services, you can go to platforms and subscribe as a fraudster, and it will help you to spoof email addresses, or like you say, spoof the telephone number so that the caller ID comes up exactly the same. And I think a lot of people have put a lot of their defense in the fact that I've got caller ID, I can see if it's the right people, and well, you can fake that now, unfortunately, and people are paying a subscription fee to do exactly that, so that they can appear more convincing when they're eliciting these particular types of these scams.
That's really wild for me and our listeners to know, our viewers to know that fraudsters can pay a subscription to be a better fraudster.
Yeah, fraud as a service now exists. So there are a number of I'm not going to give any addresses away because I don't want your viewers to go, oh, let me just go and say, oh, I can make good money. What we're actually talking about is people setting up service platforms. A couple of years back, I think it was 2022, UK police, I think in cooperation with the Dutch police, the Japanese, I think there might even have been some US law enforcement involvement. They shut down a UK-based website that was called iSpoof. And what that website did was it advertised itself as the best in the business, which implies there are more than one platform
Wow.
that essentially provides these services. They provide templates, they provide the ability to clone email addresses, clone telephone numbers, scripts, all of these tools that a fraudster would need to appear more convincing, they provide them. And for a subscription fee, which was why it was one, traceable, and two, easy to find out who the people that have been subscribing were, which is quite helpful when you're trying to arrest people.
Yeah, that's just nuts. But I do understand, defrauding people is a business that grows like 20% a year,
Yeah.
year over year, and it just doesn't stop, even though law enforcement works their rear end off trying to stop it. Even like companies like yours are helping businesses and stuff like that. You're basically trying to stop it, but essentially you're slowing it down because they're always trying to innovate.
Yeah. I mean, it's a constant challenge. You're trying to stay ahead. You're trying to outthink people, or react very quickly when you come across something that has come from left field. The most you can hope to do, as you say, is be an obstacle, make it harder, and just raise the bar. The counterpoint to that we have at the moment is something I've talked about with a couple of people online and in person. But it's this idea of, so fraud as a service is someone setting up a platform and using it to monetize what they know, which is very similar to what you see in real life. I keep seeing adverts on YouTube where they're saying, "Hey, you could monetize your knowledge with various different websites." Fraudsters clearly have taken that to heart. Um, but you've also got people doing the same thing via social media platforms. So rather than providing you with everything, what we're seeing instead is people making videos showing you how I defrauded X, how I got past security at Y. And then if you want to find out the details, hit me up on Telegram, hit me up on this other encrypted messenger. And then for a fee, I will share the knowledge with you. So
Okay.
this is making the bar to entry a lot lower rather than people having to figure it out themselves. And there are some people that can figure it out themselves and are very good at it. Those people have realized that they can take a step back from the risk and they can monetize their knowledge and sell it to other people. And now we have a larger amount of people that are able to perpetrate with the same degree of sophistication, but without having had to go through all of the technical ability to get there. They simply follow the instructions, right?
Now,
It's like
I
I can't
was
build a car, but if I have a really detailed instruction manual how to build a car, I could probably build a very good car. I've got two hands, I've got a brain. right?
So will law enforcement look to make changes to the law to go after those people who are becoming the teachers and the tutors of the criminals?
I would like to think so. It's again, it's about awareness, and then it's about tying down the actual laws that are being broken. So is it creating a law, and then what is the detail of that law? Because again, if the actual exchange of information takes place, exchange of information and money takes place in an encrypted environment where it's very difficult to see or prove anything,
Hmm.
that does make it very challenging, which is why that's the route that it's gone at the moment. But we'll see. I'm sure there's something that can be done around this, and I'm sure we'll see movements. Uh, we're very much in a discovery phase at the moment, I feel like, where law enforcement agencies are becoming more aware and more cognizant of all of the different tricks that are popping up.
Hmm.
And as a result, are now starting to lay down the tracks to shut down this avenue or shut down that avenue. One of the biggest problems you have is the ability to then track someone down and prosecute them,
Hmm.
and the jurisdictional difficulties you may have if someone is defrauding people in the US, but they're based in, somewhere in Asia, and then you've
Hmm.
got jurisdiction. So, interagency cooperation, I think, is going to be very key if we're going to really send out a message and make it practical to actually enforce laws on these particular crimes.
Okay, hey folks, stick with us. We're going to be right back with more Simon Horswell. This is wonderful. So, okay, perfect. Um, let's see. Let's pause this for 1 second. That's okay. All right. Let's get this straight. Okay, there we go. That was perfect, Simon. That's wonderful.
Cool.
So,
Just wind me up and let me go.
oh no, no. Well, the thing is, to me, this is very interesting, and this is I don't have to really ask a lot because you're already going down the line of the questions that our listeners and viewers are going. I'm just like, okay, keep going. So, let's start walking through the pet fraud, the online shopping fraud, and so on and so forth, and a little bit of how it works and how people can protect themselves. Is that
Okay.
okay?
Yeah, of
All right,
course.
cool. And we got 3 more segments to go. Oh, this is wonderful. Okay, here we go. Cameron, we're moving into segment 2 with Simon Horswell. Hey, folks, welcome back to the Saving with Steve show where we talk about the ins and outs of money. We have Simon Horswell. This is an outstanding interview. You're going to want to stick here for the rest of this. We're talking about frauds, how they work. Simon is a senior fraud specialist at Entrust, and he's deep in the knowledge of this. He was just explaining in the past episode how some people who were stealing from people are now teaching to others how to do it. And that's nuts. So what I'd like to do now is we're going to start talking about the different frauds so you can understand what they are and how to protect yourself. So the next one is pet fraud. Never thought of this. What's pet fraud all about?
Yeah, well, fraud tends to thrive in environments where they understand that people are vulnerable. And one of those times will be when you're making the plunge to actually increase your family by buying one of our four-legged or two-legged or finned friends. And yeah, it's an ideal opportunity. Um, what we're seeing is people setting themselves up. So it could be a couple of scenarios. It could be that you're dealing with an unscrupulous breeder or an unscrupulous dealer. So someone who hasn't raised the animals under the environment that you would expect. I think most of us would expect, at least from a reputable breeder, that you're animal has been kept in the best possible conditions. They've been fed nicely. Their health has been maintained. They're treated nicely. And disreputable breeder is going to have them in probably horrible conditions, won't have looked after them, will be knocking them out by the dozen, charging through the nose, and you're not getting an animal that's going to unfortunately be a part of your family for very long due to poor health. But that's kind of like the best case scenario. The worst case scenario is depending on how you look at it, you get no animal at all. Because it's an entirely fake setup where someone will advertise, they will put up pictures that they probably downloaded or stolen from somewhere else. You'll see an animal, you might even see a video of an animal, but there is no animal or at least you're never going to see the animal that's being advertised. So taking your money in exchange for no pet in return. That's
So what
essentially what
they're
we're talking about here.
so let me be clear. So basically, what you're saying is they're going to be showing pictures, like they've got an animal, it's a model, and you can see they're having fun. You can see the pet has a personality. Everybody goes, "Oh, I love that, I love that," and they're
Mhm.
going to ask for some sort of deposit or payment in advance, and they'll ship it, but it never gets shipped.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. And this is the thing. I'd say with any of these, we still seem to be, or a lot of people still seem to be treating the internet like it's real life. And by that, I mean when we do an exchange of goods, when we interact with people, we treat it as if they were in front of us and we know who they are, but we
Hmm.
don't. And this is why you have to be more guarded about these things because, well, maybe 80%, 90% of what you come across on the internet is genuine, or the people that you talk to are actually the people they say they are. There is going to be a percentage of people that are not and are putting up a complete facade. And this is an example of that. If I was going to buy an animal, buy a pet, then I would want to see the animal before I even consider exchanging any money. I would want to meet the dealer. I would want to see the animal in the environment they're in. And, probably cash would be a nice way to do it, or bank transfer when I'm with them and I'm just about to receive the animal.
Hmm.
But any other scenario like that, you should be a bit more guarded and a bit more wary. Quite often you'll find in these kind of exchanges, there'll be a reason why, oh, I was going to let you come today to see them, but the plumbing's broken and we've got a flood, so they are wet and I've had to move them. And any other kind of scenario that you can think of that's semi-plausible, but every time you push for that real life meeting, there'll be another reason why it can't happen today, or another reason why they were just going to reach you and then something came up. So
Hmm.
always be very, very wary of that. That's something you should really be on the lookout for.
Yeah, I've heard about some of these things where they meet somebody, they purchase the animal, and the health isn't good. They haven't had their parvo, their vaccinations and stuff like that,
Hmm.
and they fall sick very quickly. And
Yep.
they might have paid a couple $1,000s for a dog, and then they're paying another $3,000 or $4,000 because they got to take him to the vet, and it's all out because the animal's passed away, and
Yeah,
it's
that's
because
it. And there's the financial loss, but then at the same time there's the distress. So right,
Mhm.
if you're buying a pet, that's because you have an affinity for the animal. At least I would hope so, right?
Okay.
Which means that you're seeing that animal in distress, which is going to cause you emotional distress yourself.
Hmm.
And then when unfortunately they do pass on, which is more than likely if they've been kept in poor conditions that entire time and the breeding conditions have been questionable as well, that is going to take a toll on you as a person emotionally as much as it is financially. So
Hmm.
this is a really hard one. It really kicks in the soft parts, if you pardon the term.
Yeah, no, I get that because it's like I just thinking, you know what, when you have bring an animal in the house, it's like a new family member, and that
Exactly
emotional
that.
attachment is significant.
Yeah.
So,
You're
and you know
expanding
what,
your family and
when they're small, they're so cute, and all that kind of stuff. So let's talk about a big one, online shopping fraud. I mean, this happens all the time. And even the last time you and I had this conversation, I can look at things now and go, oh, that's fake.
yeah,
So let's talk about that because you know what, we got Christmas going to the new year. Online shopping is going to be prevalent for the rest of our lives.
yeah. And this is the thing. And I think kind of like around Christmas time, you have all the deals leading up to Christmas. Everything's advertised as Black Friday. And then I'm sure you probably have this in the States, but we have it over here. You have the January sales, right? Where they have
Hmm.
leftover stock, so they're selling that at cut price because it's going to be out of season. And that's where you expect to see some bargains. But the thing is with these type of scams, they then have to go that little step further. Because if you're thinking about the fact you're going to get some reasonable bargains, if you want to stand out from the crowd and make sure you're the most attractive offer, you have to go a bit crazy. So, the general rule is when you see something that looks too good to be true, you should already be quite guarded. You should already be wary of what it is you're getting yourself into and then be looking out for all of these other signals. So, invariably, you reply to the offer. There may be some protracted thing where you have to go through certain hoops or you have to sign on to a specific platform or a specific app. And at that point, people are starting to elicit information from you. And it might just be that they're harvesting information, but why not make a bit of money as well? So they only ask you for a small amount of money for this amazing deal, such a bargain, considering what you're going to get. But there's no guarantee at all that anything will turn up, or if something does turn up, it may not be as advertised in any way, shape, or form. It could be a counterfeit. It could just be a completely different item, or just a fabrication completely.
So this is one of those cases where you really want to make sure, how do you make sure a website is reputable? How do you make sure of that?
What uh, if it's something that's just kind of popped up and you've never heard of before, then I would immediately be
Oh yeah.
quite wary of it. But you can always look around for reviews. I tend to, whenever I'm shopping online, I look for reviews on any product that I'm going to purchase anyway. The important thing is that you're doing that independent of the site that you're prepared to buy it from. That's number one. Look at people's reviews. But with any website, you can also punch that in and ask for reviews on it and see what people come back with. And you may find, unfortunately, that somebody else has fallen down this particular trap and has been scammed before from that website, and the goods never turned up, or the customer service never responded after it turned out the goods were broken or whatever. So those are normally quite good indicators. But again, common theme throughout all of these, always be wary of anything that looks too good to be true. I think we all want to try and get an advantage and find a little bit of assistance in this life, but unfortunately, the rule is always true. If it looks too good to be true, it generally is, and that's exactly what fraudsters are doing to try and pull people in.
hmm And then social media and email, social media hacking. I mean, this actually happened to me, and I had to go through Facebook and it went through a bit of a process. So, how can people, is there any way people can prevent this? Or what do people actually do to actually hack so they understand what's going on here?
Um, there's a couple of different approaches. We've kind of touched on phishing early on. That's one way to try and do it. But weak passwords, using the same password on multiple different platforms. I know passwords can be tricky to remember, particularly as they get more long and complicated. Um, but the fact of the matter is, we now have tools that can help us with that, right? You want to have a password which is, a minimum 12 characters, I would suggest, maybe 16. A good mix of capital and lowercase, maybe even some special characters. But you'll find that your device or a particular app, like a password locker of some kind, I think Chrome has one built in. There are a number of different ones. You got like one password, I think is another one. These are all apps that are designed to create passwords for you that are more robust, and
hmm
then also store them and keep them for each of your separate apps or websites so that your accounts are all kept separate. What you don't want is to be using the same password that is, I don't know, your surname and then your year of birth, or your wife's first name or her middle name and your kid's year of birth, or something like that. You want to avoid doing that, using it multiple times. It's
hmm
quite good now. You can actually, there's a number of different websites that will show you if your credentials for any account has been compromised. As I say, I know Chrome offers this as a particular facility. It will pop up and say like this account, your email address that you've been using and your password has been seen on this many platforms or these accounts. These are the ones that have already been hacked that we can show have been hacked. Um, so bearing all of that in mind, try and use different passwords for every account. Use a password manager or a password locker to actually make that simple for you. And then all you need to do is gain access to that one locker. That allows you to have something much more complicated that can be generated on your behalf so you don't have to try and remember it. And that will make it much stronger for you. But be very wary of anything that's asking you for personal information, potentially maybe some of the things you might use as security questions. I think, was it last time I came on here, I explained about the old scam about the porn star name. So
Yeah.
your first pet and your mum's maiden name, because both
Yeah.
of those are security questions. So it's that kind of thing. Keep an eye out for those. But yeah, regularly monitor all of your accounts as well for any unusual activity.
Mhm.
And avoid clicking on suspicious links. I don't think people are quite wary enough on this. If you're on a laptop or a computer, you can at least hover your cursor over the link without clicking, and it should pop up and show you where it's actually going to send you, because you might find that whatever is stated there isn't actually the address it's going to send you to, which is a very big red flag.
Mhm.
But just be very
Hey,
wary of
Simon,
what
hold
you
on a
are
second. We're
clicking
going to
on.
have to stop right there, take a quick break, and
Sure.
we'll be right back with more Simon Harswell and Steve and Saving with Steve. Perfect. You have such good information. I'm like, okay, okay, take a
Sorry,
breath.
man. Sorry, am I going too much? Yeah, I can pause more often, then it gives you a time
Oh no, no,
to
no,
come
you're
in.
good. You're good. It's just that the problem is the information's too good. So the things that you're saying right now about what people should do, nobody thinks about that. Okay. And if they listen to this, they'll go, oh, that's what happened. And then they'll, learn from it. And I don't want them to not hear that.
Yeah,
So that's why I'm letting it go. And we're good. We're good. We're good.
cool.
Okay, so here we go. Cameron, we're moving into segment number 3 with Simon Horswell. Hey, welcome back to the Saving with Steve show, where we talk about the ins and outs of money. I truly want to thank you for sharing us with your friends, family, and associates. We're over 1 million listeners right now, so we're very, very happy. All the replays are available at savingwithsteve.us. If you're enjoying the stories of helpful information, insight on Saving with Steve, I encourage you to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you never miss a show. Check out a few of our affiliates at UK Health Radio, BBS Radio, Talk Radio New York City, E360 TV, Los Angeles TV networks. They're all dedicated to empowering you to solve problems, uplift your spirit, and live a life of personal and financial freedom. So, Simon, welcome back again, and I'm glad you're here. Here we are. Let's talk a little bit more about the frauds. The cool thing is, if you're listening, listen to this again, because Simon's talking about how to protect yourself. And that's really, really very cool, and how to recognize what's going on. Now, one of the biggies is romance fraud. I mean, this is just prevalent and it keeps going. And I personally know of two handfuls of people who've been affected by this. And they, you know what, one, I think she lost almost $400,000. Another one lost $150,000. And these are people, even when they slipped up and told me about it because they put a pressure on them not to tell people or their advisor.
Hmm.
Um, you know what? I even said, this is a fraud, call the police. And they said, nope, nope, nope. I'm going to double my money in 6 months and all that kind of stuff. And what is it? I had just earlier this year, I had one gentleman. He was a prevalent singer. It was funny. It was the girl was the cousin of a guy who was supposed to be a crypto genius. And I said,
Uh-huh.
I need you to do one thing. Find out what his address is on Wall Street and see if he actually has an office there. I want you to go to the SEC website and see if he actually has a license. And then he found out the guy was in Asia, not on Wall Street.
Hmm.
And I said, it's a scam. So let's talk about the romance side of that and what people do, because I know it's, not just romance, but it's also like a relationship, online relationship
Yeah.
type thing.
So we can kind of pull in one of the other ones we've got listed as well. So we've got investment fraud, and we can kind of pull the two together. They're kind of quite closely linked, or they can be under the right circumstances. So romance fraud is where someone will approach you online, and it could be reaching out to you via Facebook. I don't, I don't know if anyone still uses Skype, but I used to see people pop up all the time when I was online, just completely random. Picture of a lovely woman. They'd be going, "Hey, I really want to talk to you. You look great," and it's a lead up into something. Okay,
Mhm.
so Facebook is one way of doing it. Again, if you're on dating websites, they can be rife with it as well. So you have to be kind of quite careful, as I'm sure you should when you're online and talking to strangers anyway. But what they'll do is start a relationship. Again, there'll be some reason why you can't meet. I think we may have seen sort of this now. I think Dr. Phil's done a ton of this in America, right? With romance scams. You had Catfish, the movie, and then Catfish, the TV series as well that talked about it. Netflix has had a number of documentaries that sort of bring up these ideas. Um, but it's someone who's creating a fake profile, a fake persona. They might use their own face. They might use a face that they've taken from somewhere else. They establish a relationship. They get the victim invested. They're looking for someone who is open to a relationship, and then they take advantage of that. They love bomb them. They hit them with all of these platitudes, and they tell them how much they mean to them, and they confess their undying love, and normally over a very short space of time because they haven't got a massive window. But surprise, surprise, something will come up. There'll be a reason why the star-crossed lovers definitely can't meet in person because this has happened or that has happened. Now, obviously, the reason they can't meet is because that person doesn't exist or isn't who they say they are. But what makes it more interesting, and here's where the angle comes in, is what if that reason that they can't meet is because that person is stuck somewhere or caught in something or has had something happen to them. And the only way they can get around it is if you help them out by giving them money. Now, if this sounds familiar, then you are in a romance scam. So it'll be I can't get out of the country because they won't let me sort out my visa, or something unfair has happened, or I've been wrongly accused of this crime and I need to pay for my lawyer, or I got hit by a car or got caught with this illness and now I need help with the medical bills. It's very, very strange that in all of these relationships, suddenly you are being asked to part with your money. Those are the key hallmarks of a romance scam. Never meet in person, only ever met online. You might get a video call, but it's very, very rare. You might get a phone call, but again, it's very, very rare. It would be very garbled. Nowadays, both of these can actually be spoofed quite easily using deep fakes and using deep voice. That makes it entirely possible for someone to recreate what otherwise we might have considered to be genuine evidence that someone existed. That can now be faked. But the fact that you've never met in person should tell you that you are not in a fully invested relationship and you shouldn't be parting with your money. It's very difficult for people because normally the ask comes after they've been love bombed over quite an intense period of time and they're now committed.
Mhm.
And if they're playing the long game, that can be as much as 6 months. But the alternative twist on that, of course, is turning that romance scam into an investment scam where you gain the person's trust. An investment scam can be done platonically as well. I talked about this with a couple of other people. There's a lovely type of investment scam, a particular flavor of it called pig butchering. And what you do is either you're just getting someone to use an app or a website and invest, which is basically just give the fraudster money. Or in the case of pig butchering, what they do with the end victim is they are actually feeding their money back to show them how well that investment is doing. So just give me $100. Oh, look, it's already turned into $500. Can you imagine if you gave me $10,000? And you see how the pattern works.
Mhm.
So again, someone you've never met in person suddenly is asking you to invest, or someone that you've only recently met is asking you to invest. You've got to be very wary of Ponzi schemes, pyramid schemes, and just completely falsified schemes. There are lots of these online, and like I say, it might be through a relationship, but with investment scam, it could be a link, it could be an advert. We've seen a few in the UK where they claim that Elon Musk has invested all of his money in this, so you should too. And then they've deep faked a celebrity to tell people about that, a money expert in this country.
Oh.
So yeah, no one is safe. Anything that's credible can be used by the fraudster. If it's online, particularly if
Mhm.
it's on certain social media platforms, then you should be very, very wary of it, particularly if it involves you parting with some money.
What's interesting is the gentleman that I was talking about, he was actually considering investing $100,000. And he goes, yeah, at first I was thinking, maybe 20,000, that would be fine. I'd be okay with that. But now I'm thinking about 100,000 because of what's happening with crypto. And I was just going, oh my God, you're ready to give up, you know, 20% of your life savings to this. And that,
Mm.
I just like, oh my God. And then the other person, she gave up all of her life savings because they did this thing where they said, well, you have to be at this level in order to take out money.
Of course, of
And it
course you
was
do.
just like, okay, I'll put, it was like, I go, and you put more in? And then even worse is that person got a letter from the IRS saying, hey, you owe taxes on this. She wasn't going to tell anybody until she got hit with this $120,000 tax bill, and then she had to file the police reports with the FTC and all that stuff, and give it to the IRS so she can be absolved of those taxes. So people are embarrassed by this type of stuff, especially if there's a romance thing involved,
Yeah.
because nobody wants to tell anybody they got scammed. And I understand that, and
Well,
that's probably what people are booking.
this is it. You touched upon some of that earlier as well when you mentioned it, and another key feature is that they'll as the particularly with a romance scam, as it starts to snowball, as the asks start to get bigger and bigger, and they're just slowly draining the finances out of the victim, there will be a real drive to isolate them, to tell them that it's you and me against everybody else. Don't tell your family. Don't tell your daughter. Your daughter's not going to understand. She thinks I'm this or whatever, for whatever reason. You don't talk to her about me, or I don't tell the police I exist because of all the problems that I'm having at the moment with whatever and whatever. Always be very aware of that as well. If everything's above board, there be no reason why you
Hmm.
can't openly talk about a relationship with someone. If everything's above board, there shouldn't be any reason why you can't tell people about an investment that you've just made.
Hmm.
With any of these things, do your research before you even think about parting with money. Again, something looks too good to be true, whether it's an investment opportunity or whether it's a new relationship, then you should at least do some due diligence. Um, it's very easy to say like someone's stalking, but it's not. If you've only ever met someone online, if you haven't ever met them in person, if you haven't initially met them in person, and then they start asking you for money, then maybe you should think about taking one of their profile pictures. So you're not going and rooting through all of their personal information, but a profile picture is something you can find quite easily. Maybe then do a Google search or something similar, but some kind of image search online and see how many times that photo appears elsewhere. If it only appears on the one page, fine. If it appears on multiple pages, what identity does it claim to be from? Who's owning those accounts? You might find the real owner of the image potentially, and that should be, quite quite determined as kind of the fact that this is a fake. Whether it's hard to believe or not, you can't deny simple facts.
We did that with one of my clients. And I said, let's just take the photo because you told me that last time.
Mm.
And we put it up on the internet. It was a Swedish model. It was just, this Swedish model guy. And I'm like, okay. And she's like,
Yeah,
when we did it, she just went, oh my God. Oh my God.
yeah. It once you know, you know. That's the thing. But the important thing I think with what we're doing here is uh, the victims themselves, right? It can be very embarrassing, right? It's also actually it's also quite emotionally draining, right? They've actually been
Oh
through a
yeah.
form of trauma themselves, right? Because there's the sense of loss and the sense of betrayal, or just complete disbelief. But again, this is playing into the fraudster's hand. They want them to feel silly, so they don't tell anyone. They want them to kind of like keep everything to themselves. But it's like with any of these kind of scenarios, you should be quite open about it. You should be safe to talk to your friends and family about it because they're the people you have a genuine relationship with, not someone that you've just met through a screen.
That's great advice. Hey, folks, stick with us. We're going to be right back with Simon and Saving with Steve. Wow, that was good timing.
It happens occasionally.
Okay, so we're gonna go through the final segment. I want to talk about um, what is it?
So I think we've got holiday fraud, ticket fraud. They're much the same
Let's talk
thing.
about also QR code fraud. I've never heard of that, but I'm
Mm,
assuming there's something there. So I think people should know about that because everybody's scanning a QR code nowadays.
yep.
So,
Yep, no, I
okay.
think that's a good one to cover. You've got charity fraud or gift card fraud as well. Gift card fraud's still quite common.
Well,
Charity.
we got 10 minutes.
Oh, right. At this rate, we'll get through one of those.
So here we go. Hello, folks. Welcome back to the Saving with Steve show, where we talk about the ins and outs of money. We're having an outstanding interview with Simon Horswell of Entrust. He's a senior fraud specialist, and you know what? He's just going through the ins and outs of these frauds, how it works, what you need to do to make sure you protect yourself from that. Next, we're going to be talking about QR code fraud, holiday fraud, ticket fraud, You know what? And if we can get to a few others, we will. We only have about 10, 12 minutes left. But Simon, let's just go right to the QR code fraud because this is
Mm.
something I've never heard about, but I'm going to bet it's there because more and more people are pushed to go to a QR code, whether it be for a menu at a restaurant or just on the TV nowadays.
Yeah. I think generally if you're finding it on a TV, on a screen, that's probably a little bit safer. If it's coming up at the end of an advert on your broadcast TV show, you should be okay. If it's coming up at the end of an advert that's of very questionable production quality, maybe you should be a bit more wary. But what we're really talking about here are QR codes popping up just out and about in public. So it's quite often now that you'll see a sign with a QR code on it, or you'll see a poster with a QR code on it. And that's all well and good, and it's very helpful. That QR code contains bits of information, one of which might be a link that directs you directly to a website, a particular website. Now, when it's genuine and it's an integral part of that poster or that sign, great. But what fraudsters do is they actually go and stick their own one on top. And that QR code is going to send you to a more malicious website that's actually owned and run by the fraudster. So in that scenario, you're now entering a domain where the fraudster has set everything up as they want it. It might look very close to the original. It might look exactly the same as the original. But again, any of the links that you've got in there might be launching malware on your device, asking you to put payment details in just that they're being harvested, or you're agreeing to pay for something else on the fraudster's behalf. So when you encounter a QR code, pay special attention to see if there's any indications that something has been stuck on top of the original. See if you can see any additional edges or overlaps that shouldn't be there. And if that's the case, then very simply go and research that particular company yourself online. Okay, so don't QR codes are there for convenience, but if you are concerned or worried in any way, then just let your fingers do the walking and go and actually research that company directly. You don't have to use a QR code to find any of these people, otherwise they wouldn't survive, right?
Mhm.
They have to have a proper email address that the QR code is going to direct you to, so you can find that by using a search engine as well. Do your research as well. Any of these companies that you will be looking up, do your research to ascertain that they are genuine. They have been around for a while. That is their genuine email address that you're going, website address that you're going to, and that the products that they're selling or the services they're offering are actually reputable and of decent value.
That's great. You know what? I think that one of the big pieces of information you talked about is when you're going to scan the QR code, wherever you're at, see if there's something that's been laid over it, just to
Exactly.
make sure it's not somebody that's spoofing you. Because, hey, you know what? If they get your stuff, they get your stuff. That could be your money, your life, your livelihood. It could be your reputation. So it's very important to look at that. So, next thing, let's talk about ticket fraud.
Mm. So ticket fraud, this is kind of very similar to the pet fraud in a way, in the way that it works. So there's an advert for I've got tickets to this concert, I've got tickets to this game, this event. I can't use them, so I'm selling them for this price. Now I think maybe going back a few years, that was probably okay. That was probably someone genuine that just had something going on. Nowadays, I think we've all if you've tried to go into any events, you're probably finding that getting hold of tickets has become very difficult due to scalpers having moved online and doing quite a good job with it. Bots have made it a lot easier to do, and companies are constantly trying to find ways to outwit the bots so that they can still sell to genuine people and that all of the tickets won't get bought up by scalpers. Um, Now, what we're looking at here is people flipping the reverse of it. So they are advertising generally on a social media platform that they are selling these spare tickets and they're selling them for this price or at face value. Um, if you want to buy them, let me know. That's actually a scammer, and they don't have any tickets. They might say they're going to show you loads of pictures of stuff. I actually had someone approach me about some tickets for a football game or a soccer game, as you might call it. And the more I kind of went through the conversation with them, all of the flags started coming up, and I knew that this was a scam. So things like, for example, I'd love to meet you in person, but I just can't at the moment. It's like in this particular case, the person lived in the same town as me, and the game isn't for 2 months.
Oh,
Now, in a 2 month period, living in the same zip code, in the same postcode, I was like, whereabouts? I'll just walk around your house now. You're talking to me on the phone. If you're at home, I'll go. They couldn't. They just couldn't because they're just too busy. It's like, what do you do for a living? Nothing. Right?
I,
Yeah, again, don't be afraid. Look, before you part with your money, right? A lot of these scams are playing on your social nicety, social behavior. Someone's asking you for money though, and you're expecting to get something back. And in the case of some of these, particularly now with ticket exchanging, um, that's going to be sight unseen, right? I have to give you the money so that you can punch in that it has happened because the person who owns the ticket doesn't want to get scammed themselves, right?
Mhm.
But that is an element of trust. And if you're not face to face, or you don't know that person, you haven't agreed to meet up somewhere to do the exchange, then you are just giving someone money. They shouldn't be offended if you just ask them a few rudimentary questions about their background that they shouldn't find difficult to answer, and it shouldn't take them all day to do.
Mhm.
Chat engines, as I say, are kind of making it easier for someone to generate replies that seem quite realistic. So we can't use that necessarily as a measure anymore, but we can just do some basic questioning. Again, if something looks too good to be true, then it generally is. But there are a few things that you can ask that will just ping those warning flags. And at the end of the day, if you still don't like the sound of it, you can always walk away. It
Mhm.
doesn't matter how desperate you are, there are official channels for getting tickets. If it's all sold out, there will be official ticketing websites, ticketing exchange websites. I know we all might feel that ticketing prices have gone up lately. Fine. And then the idea of paying that company again or another company a markup fee for doing an exchange might irk a little bit. But when you compare it to the alternative of I paid the same amount of money as the face value of the ticket and got nothing, then I think you'd agree it actually kind of works in our favor
Yeah.
to use the official channels.
Yeah, I've been to comedy shows at arenas and things like that where they're all scanning the tickets, and I've seen a few people ahead or behind me that they scan and they say, I'm sorry.
This
And
ticket doesn't
because they're no
exist.
good. And it's just
Yeah.
like, oh my God,
Yeah.
those were expensive tickets too. So let's talk
Exactly.
about a big thing, um, charity fraud. And we have
Mm.
about 2.5, 3 minutes here. Um, you know what? Natural disasters, everybody's looking to help. You see these websites pop up. You know what? How do people know whether it's going to the right place or not?
Uh, with any of these, again, it's just being aware of the fact that the internet is a potentially dangerous place. So do your research on that charity. If they're official, they should have an official website. You should be able to find them up on the register as well. Certainly in the UK, we have a registry of charities. So going through the official channels, you should be able to find that that charity is officially registered. Now, if it's not, then at least you know where you're starting off from and you can be a bit more wary as you progress through this. You've got things like justgiving.com, crowdfunding websites. Uh, that one's a little bit harder, but generally speaking, if you're going to one of those, it might be because you actually have some connection to the person that owns that particular page, right? So generally, if I'm getting hit up for things on some crowdfunding page, it's because I know a relative of the person who's actually doing that work for charity, or I know the person that's generally is a worker with that particular movement or that particular idea. It's what you're prepared to give, and it's what who you're prepared to give it to. But there's no harm in actually doing a bit of research before you do that very generous act of giving away some of your money. Make sure you're doing it through reputable channels. I think a lot of these crowdfunding pages now have to do a bit of due diligence themselves to ensure that people's money is going to the right place. But if it's claiming to be an official charity, there are certainly a lot of checks you can do to verify that and verify that you're going to the right website as well. And again, avoid any pressure tactics. Always make sure that it's legitimate before you kind of spend your money, but be very wary in all of these scenarios of pressure. The fact that there's a very small window, because again, this is a tactic that scammers use to try and get you to part with your money before you've had time to think and reflect about it. You should always be able to talk this out with another person, whether it's a close friend, whether it's a member of the family. You should always be have to have that window of opportunity. Otherwise, why are you actually doing it? If someone can pressure you just by saying that you've got a small amount of time to do it, how important is that thing that you can't take time to just stop and think?
You know what? I think that's a great, great statement. The pressure that somebody puts on you so you don't have time to think. And you know what? If people just think, hey, I'm getting pressured here to give money or to do something or to whatever, and I don't have time to think, I should probably just stop.
Yep.
That would be
It's a very valuable tool. So, like I said, if it's unsolicited, so think about how you came across this with any of the scams that we've talked about today. How have you come into this situation? Did you reach out to them? Was it through official channels, or did someone reach out to you? And have you verified who they are? But then, when you're talking to them in those communications, is there supposed to be money involved in this particular exchange? Why? And if so, why am I getting pressurized to hand over that money? Why is it so urgent? And so ask yourselves those questions, because generally those are warning signs that you are in a scam, that someone is trying to elicit money from you or elicit personal information from you. They might even try reverse psychology of like, hey, you can walk away, it's fine by me, but then it's followed by, but then you'll be missing out on X, Y, or Z.
hmm
With a romance scam, it's like, if you don't do this, we'll never meet, or I won't be able to continue our relationship, and I'm very sorry about that. Clear sign of a scam.
Wow. Hey, we have 30 seconds left. Simon, if somebody would like to contact your firm, a business wants to contact your firm to get your help, consultation, how do they go about doing that?
Yeah, www.entrust.com. That's entrust.com.
That's perfect. Simon, thank you so much for being here. I hope you have a wonderful 2025. And you know what? You know I'm going to have you back next year because this is just too
I
hot of
hope
a
so.
topic. So,
Thank you very
hey,
much. It's been a pleasure. Thanks, Steve.
same here. You have a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful year.